People are still talking about Roe v. Wade biting the dust. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut, and in fact, it is part 3. We are still getting reaction from the leak or forgery of Samuel A. Alito's first draft opinion in the case of Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. We're going to talk about what people think happened, what should happen, and what is very likely to happen regardless. Because if that document is authentic, and if it holds, we're going to see the Great Sortation in our lifetime. And in another generation, we might see abortion go away, perhaps forever. First, I want to shout out to the sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views, link in the description. Be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down to the bottom for that link. Lots of good merchandise there. And including this t-shirt for Trumpinators saying, "I'll be back." He's definitely relevant this time because more than any other single man, he made this moment possible. And I want to remind you, I am a published author. Look for 2 new books, Matthew's Run and its sequel, Matthew's War. They tell the story of what our country and our world might look like after 380-odd years of wokeness, and about a cyborg with a conscience who also just doesn't like to be used, leading a rebellion against it. They're available right now at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, to name 2, and there will be others to follow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, class is dismissed, and now we take the great field trip into a likely and interesting future. Reaction has now come in from NPR, CNN, the Texas Tribune, and even the BBC. It's also worth citing Eric Woods Erickson, who has some insight on what this will mean for midterms. But it's also worth noting the irony in Erickson's reaction. Here's a hint. The irony derives from his never Trumpism. Almost everyone weighing in on the leaked draft seems to accept it as authentic. That same consensus also suspects a progressive law clerk, perhaps a clerk for Justice Sonia Sotomayor. This clerk, according to this theory, leaked Alito's opinion to incite progressive people into more ranting and raving and screaming at the top of their lungs, if not blood and flames riots, in a desperate attempt to sway Justices Barrett, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh away from an opinion to overturn Roe. Furthermore, people are propounding a theory to explain the other part of the leak, how the justices will vote. Chief Justice Roberts, according to this theory, would vote to reverse the lower court on the Dobbs case. In other words, he would let the Mississippi Gestational Age Act stand, but not because Roe is not valid. Rather, he will ask who's to say that a 15-week unborn child is not viable. With improvements in modern medicine, such an unborn child could be viable, if not today, then soon. In that case, the vote would not really be 5-4. It would be 6-3 to uphold the Mississippi law, but 5-4 to reverse Roe. So maybe the vote would be 5-1-3. Now, let's talk about what should happen and what very likely will happen. Erickson has the most comprehensive overview of what will and should happen next. Like the rest, he assumes that the draft opinion against Roe v. Wade is authentic. He recommends that Chief Justice Roberts, 1, lay aside any objection he still has to overturning Roe v. Wade, and 2, order a full investigation to find out who leaked that draft. I would point out, at minimum, some justice rates a reprimand for not locking the door to chambers. And if the investigation finds that a clerk for Justice Sotomayor, or Kagan, or Breyer leaked the draft, that justice, 1, has been phenomenally careless in their selection of law clerks, or 2, has committed an impeachable offense by ordering the leak. In any event, the court cannot let this go. If that draft is authentic, then the leak of it is the most serious possible breach of court security. Separately, CNN notes that Democrats want to remove the filibuster in the Senate and pass a measure codifying Roe, but they have 2 problems. As Erickson pointed out, had the Democrats never touched the filibuster, we would not even be at this pass. We would not have Justices Kavanaugh or Barrett, and perhaps not even Justice Gorsuch. Furthermore, if Congress did codify Roe in this session, the next Congress would reverse that. Hey there, you Democrats, you listen to me. If you want a midterms issue to galvanize Republicans, all you have to do is take one step in that direction. Go ahead. I double dog dare you. Now that I've got your attention, Erickson points out something else. Abortion in the United States won't change much. We didn't even have a federal law on abortion before Roe v. Wade, and unless the Democrats pull any foolishness in the Senate, we won't have a federal law afterward. Instead, trigger laws will come into force and effect after the decision, usually within 30 days. Texas has one. If Roe goes, abortion goes with it in Texas, from conception, and no fooling around with private lawsuits either. Other states will codify a right to abortion, as many have already done. Today, in most pro-life states, few abortion clinics still stand, and with the trigger laws, those clinics will close. Nor will this materially affect midterms. The debate on the trigger laws and on private enforcement laws, like the Texas Heartbeat Act, has already galvanized abortion supporters. They will vote Democratic as before, and abortion opponents will vote Republican as before, if not more so. Nor will pro-life people slack off. We've heard the threats to codify abortion in federal law. In fact, I've already had a fundraiser hit my inbox warning me that the deep state engineered the leak and the attacks are going to come thick and fast and we have to stop them. We also know who changed the court critically to make Roe go away. That honor goes to Donald J. Trump. And here lies Erickson's other problem. Yesterday, he bitterly said he could never support Trump because Trump treated love and marriage cavalierly. But today he had to thank Trump. It must have made him come near to choking to type that. We now come to the one consequence nobody wants to talk about, the Great Sortation. By the Great Sortation, I mean not only different states having different laws, but also people caring enough about the laws under which they live to move to states having laws they like. That license to kill that codified abortion represents will push people to move as no other issue will. Citigroup, for instance, will find that paying travel expenses won't be enough. Their employees will insist on choosing their states for their laws. The only ones who will have less leverage to enforce such a preference will be executive officers and salespeople. And what goes for Citigroup will go for other interstate employers. Even now, overturning Roe v. Wade might not affect federal elections, but will affect state elections. This will hold especially wherever one-party control does not yet exist. In 1 or 2 election cycles, it will. Then, the moving truck companies will enjoy balanced two-way traffic for their equipment. Except for rare pockets of leftist thought, like Travis County, Texas, red states will become uniformly red. Leftists will simply move out. Don't expect pockets of red and seas of blue, however. Instead, expect conservatives to move to red states, if only to have congenial neighbors. In a generation, total fertility rates will ensure solid, conservative, and civilizational majorities in a majority of states and at the federal level. If that happens, abortion might even go away forever. Those who would vote for codifying abortion won't be born. Those who want abortion to go away and stay away will be. Now you do the math. Links in the description to the article, to 2 earlier articles written on this subject and the Great Sortation, and the conservative news and views. I have another link to the awesome online store, as I mentioned. And if you like what you've heard, you can like this video and subscribe to this channel. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you, let the truth set you free.